Over the weekend, Prime Minister Tony Abbott celebrated 100 days of stopping the boats. However, just a few weeks ago, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said that the recent violence on Manus Island underscored the need to review the resettlement arrangements with PNG and Nauru. In her speech, Dr. Pillay mentioned Australia, among other serious rights violations, as we have mentioned, in Sri Lanka, Syria and Ukraine. Tim Wilson, is it not of utmost concern and an embarrassment that Australia is now known worldwide as a human rights offender and that our government is normalising human rights violations?
It's absolutely important that we address this issue, and yes, there are many problems associated with Australia's detention program, particularly with relation to having it offshore in comparison to having it onshore. But I have to say one of my particular issues, and this is what the Australian Human Rights Commission is looking precisely at the moment, is the issue around children in detention. Just before I started the Commission, an inquiry was announced to look exactly at the sorts of issues that are facing children and making sure they're able to go through standards of normal development, both in health and in terms of social interaction, and where that's being limited. And the Commission has been limited from going to Manus Island and Nauru, but has managed to go to Christmas Island and also in Sydney. And in only a couple of weeks' time, I'm going off to the Darwin Detention Centre to investigate the issues around making sure that children are treated appropriately in detention. And I have to say that there are some things that have been brought to my attention since I've started in the Commission that have made me very concerned with relation to kids in detention. And this is a clear example of it, which is the children were asked to draw an image of how they felt at the moment. And yes, it obviously shows that they feel that they're being caged up and whatnot. But the thing that actually strangely disturbs me more is that when kids are asked to write their name, they don't actually write their name, they wrote their boat number. And this is a sort of standard in which it is never acceptable to have kids in detention because they need to be able to developmentally grow, and kids need to make sure they're out there. And even, you know, at the end of an inquiry, John Howard let kids out of detention. I think that should be replicated.
Are you in the process of petitioning the government to release all children from detention centres?
What the Commission is in the process of doing is holding an inquiry that will obviously have a report at the end of it. But I don't think there'd be any...
Do you really need to... Just given what you've seen there, do you need to wait for a report?
Well, my view is that it would be wonderful if the government took children out of detention tomorrow.
Yeah. And can I just ask you, why stop at children?
So,
because, I mean, obviously children suffer terribly, they're very vulnerable, but women suffer, men suffer, young and old men. What's the difference?
Well, the decision to go and look at children in detention was because it was 10 years after the last inquiry. But obviously there is a difference. Whatever people think about asylum seekers, whatever people think about the issue about how they should be processed, whether it should be onshore, offshore, whether it should be mandatory detention, community detention, there is a big difference for kids. And it's not just because of the impact it has on them, though that is extremely important. It's also extremely important in terms of the impact it has on our society in the long term, because if you have kids who are not able to develop properly, they don't have access to education services and everything else, if in the future they come into this country, how can we reasonably expect them to be active citizens when they've been institutionalised? This isn't sort of going off to boarding school institutionalised, I mean serious institutionalised.